we have arrived at what to invest in regenerative agriculture. We've looked at the land side, we've looked at how to invest, we've looked at why to invest. And in this lesson, I want to look at the co-investors. So who are public entities, who are investors that are already investing in this space and who are public about it. This is not investment advice. I don't have any money invested in these funds or companies. I'm only a retail investor, a very small investor in the space. There are only very few places where retail investors currently can put money to work, unfortunately, in the regenerative agriculture and food space. One of the reasons doing the podcast is to find more, but we've been disappointed so far, places where small investors like us, like myself, can put money to work. So please find, this is not investment advice, so please find professional financial advice before making any investment. So what have we've looked at in this what to invest in, the last bit, the last part basically of the course we've been recording. So we've been looking at land, buying and regenerating it. We've been looking at transition finance for farmers. We've been looking at food companies. We've been looking at technology by and for farmers, very important piece. And last time we looked at ecosystem services and specifically the marketplaces. This time, slightly different lesson, looking at the co-investors who are, and this is obviously not a complete list. We're now in the middle of 2020. These are the ones that currently are public, that are open. Definitely check in again, check in the website, see if we've been sharing more names, etc. And check in the podcast we've been recording because we try to interview many of these. So co-investors are absolutely key because they de-risk. If you can partner with a fund that has experience in this space, if you can co-invest with other people that know more than you do, because it gives you the opportunity to partner with people that may have more experience in certain areas, may understand the farming side more, maybe the food side, that may know the area locally. And so it gives you the opportunity to piggyback on knowledge. And honestly, it's much more fun and obviously way less risky if you partner with the right people. So how are we structuring this lesson? Basically, there are two parts. One is, I wouldn't say a long list, but a list of funds, people that are actively open about the fact that they're very interested in regenerative food and agriculture. And the first bit actually, what is the one thing you wish you knew before making your first investment in regenerative agriculture and food? That maybe sounds a bit crypto, but we've asked this to a number of investors that have made investments in the space. And we gathered basically those lessons learned, ranging from look out for the funds that you see in the space, buying land and regenerating it, because they often are focused mainly on organic and not necessarily on regenerative. I wished agroforestry was more advanced. I wish I knew the risk involved in X, Y, Z. So they're very practical lessons that people that have made investments in the space wish they knew before they made their first investment. So they can teach you if you're haven't made your investment yet or your first investment, this might be useful. If you want to download this free PDF, just click on the link here. And I'll put it in the slides, obviously, but you can find it also on the website if you want to. Then let's go to the list. So this is not in a chronicle or ABC order, alphabetical order. This is just in an order that they came up. First of all, Replant Capital. It's a company that has been co-founded by Robin O'Brien, who I interviewed, or we interviewed actually with Benedict, my co-host, and we had a lot of fun interviewing that. And I think the main part of that interview was how do you really partner with farmers to help them speed up their transition. They work with Danone, they work with a number of groups in the US focus to really partner with farmers and put money to work to help speed up transitions of farmers on the ground. Completely different beast, Quadia, based in Switzerland, very active in Spain, France, partly in the Netherlands as well. They've made their first deal in Italy. A very interesting group for a number of reasons. They have quite a big impact fund which looks at food and ag. They have two people working there, Aymeric and Joseph, that have really shaped their food focus. And we had the great pleasure to interview them a few years ago, mainly about their alternative finance structures. So they are putting a lot of flexible loans to work, which are very interesting because they have the exit already built in. They are sort of an easy way for investors to get to know a company and an easy way for companies to take on outside capital. And they do a lot more than that. So definitely check them out. The interview I really, really enjoyed because they're one of the first that I saw putting flexible loans really to work in and with companies. Shenaka Capital, I've interviewed Sally and Esther a couple of times. Actually, Sally I interviewed once, Esther I interviewed once, and I interviewed them together. together with Benedict in the series Transition Finance for Farmers. They're probably one of the most experienced investors in regenerative agriculture and food in the US, mainly US focused or predominantly US focused. But they've been in the space for more than 15 years, and they know most people, they know most farmers, they know most movements that are happening in the space. So very interesting group to connect with. They are the founders of the No Regrets Initiative, which basically wants to teach or wants to show investors of all types that are making investments, usually in ag and food, and without considering soil. So they want to make sure that those investors are considering soil and won't have a regret after. Because if you're not considering soil and not considering regenerative practices, you're exposing yourself to an enormous social, environmental, and financial risk later on. So they have a really, really good website on, I keep repeating this in every lesson, I think, on soil health. And if you want to dig a lot deeper in regenerative businesses, in soil, in papers, etc., that's the website to go to. But they also obviously run a family office of Sally. And they run a farm, which is not unimportant. Meraki Impact, an investor with a very strong interest in food and ag, especially agroforestry, was very kind to connect me with Renature, with Felipe, and connect me with Preta Terra, which both of the interviews should be online when you're watching this. So definitely have a look. Based in Amsterdam, very interested in agroforestry, as I said, in Brazil. And I mean, interesting in terms of the work they're doing. They are a seed investor in Renature. Silverstrand, based in Singapore, impact investor with a very strong interest as well in regenerative food and ag, and based in Asia, but a global look. C2G, not only regen ag, I mean, they run a number of funds, mainly on the consumer goods side. They've done a lot of plant-based stuff, and they've done a lot, actually quite a few, let's say more the nutrient density side of things. I had Victor Friedberg on the podcast a while ago when he launched Foodshot Global, but he's still on the advisory board of C2G, and they are starting to make more, let's say, more soil focused investments. So definitely something to check out. If you're interested in oceans, we haven't looked at that at all. I should do a lesson on that. Aquaspark, I used to work there, full disclosure, a fund focused on sustainable aquaculture. They've made their first algae investment. I see an enormous potential for the regeneration of our oceans, especially the shorelines, which means near the shore. There's a very intimate connection between the oceans and farms, often in a negative way, but potentially in a positive way. So they are somebody to check out on that side. Ours have social finance. They're getting more active in agriculture and soil and in food. They've done an alternative buyout together with Purpose on organically grown, which we discussed in a previous lesson. And so they're definitely in the US. This is US based, S2G as well. Aquaspark is based in Utrecht in the Netherlands. So definitely more Europe focused, but actually they have a global focus in terms of sustainable aquaculture. Ours have, as far as I know, mostly a US focus. Renewal funds, they're up to their third fund now, very successful impact investor. I've raised 3 funds so far, done very well in a number of them, and is slowly focusing, or you see that soil is becoming more of a theme because they're making more investments. They're not only focused on that, in this case, obviously, because they do more, and they they're based in Vancouver. They mostly do, I think, North America. Small Giants, they're a Tonic member, which is a community of active impact investors that I part-time work with. Family office based in Australia with a very deep interest in soil. And last but not least, Triodos Bank has a number of funds which could be interesting if you're living in the area of Triodos Bank, which is one of the largest sustainable banks in Europe. They have an organic growth fund, which we actually interviewed, talking about transition finance, like in what ways could that be interesting for a Triodos Bank who has done a lot of organic. And the short answer was, in the future, not yet, but we're very, very interested in the regenerative movement. And they recently published, or last year, they published a complete, basically their thought piece, their white paper on how the food and agriculture system should change. And I think for now, that's it. So in terms of co-investors, these are a number of people to check in with if you're interested in this space, if you're interested to partner. And with that, I want to thank you for